We're on the Bible Forum. It's Sunday night. We're here every Sunday from 8 to 10 p.m. live, and then you can watch throughout the week from the YouTube or the Facebook pages. We trim it all up nice and neat and put it out there. You don't get all the blabber in between, but maybe you don't want that. It's in little small pieces. People who watch YouTubes or any of the videos, they say you only watch about 3 minutes. They've decided in the first 30 seconds whether this is what they want to see or not. We try to keep it around 10, 15 minutes at the most, sometimes less. I want to talk to you a little bit about socialism tonight. Do you know what socialism is? Well, we know what it does. And everywhere it's been tried, in every generation, true socialism as an economic model has been a resounding failure in literally every case. The evidence exists in places like Venezuela and Cuba, the latter of which has elements of communism thrown in for good measure. And yet, it's still a model to leaders around the world, a model they continue to push. It's as though everyone believes it to be superior. It's just not been done the right way yet. And if we try one more time, we'll get the positive result. Nowhere is the push for socialism more confusing than here in the United States, where the capitalist economic model has led to the greatest economic expansion and creation of wealth among the largest number of people than in any country throughout any time in history. Now, despite the lessons of history, socialism has several supporters in the newly seated 116th Congress. And already backers are proposing the very same measures that have doomed socialism as a successful economic model around the world. Case in point. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has proposed a Green New Deal that, if it were to ever become law or policy, would be the biggest expansion of the federal government since our founding. She wants to pay the tens of trillions of dollars it would require by, wait for it, taxing the rich. Taxing them a lot, like 70% of their gross income. In an interview with Anderson Cooper for the CBS News program 60 Minutes, Ocasio-Cortez spelled out her plan. When she was finished, Cooper labeled it radical. Here's a radical liberal calling this plan radical. That's how radical it is. But it sounds logical to this duly elected national politician in America. Ocasio-Cortez responded by saying, "I think radicals changed this country. Abraham Lincoln made the radical decision to sign the Emancipation Proclamation, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt made the radical decision to establish programs like Social Security." What? Admittedly, Social Security is a socialist idea, but the Emancipation Proclamation? This woman is every bit a socialist. And socialists are always confident that government should have the right, the authority to confiscate my money for their programs. After all, if I'm capable of taking care of myself and my family, I must have more than I need. Or at least I should care about those who don't have enough. Got a news flash for you. No one in America is working for a poor person. The man who owns the company for which I work is a multi-billionaire. And I want him to stay that way. Else I could be out of a job. This sort of economics is beyond the liberal socialist ability to comprehend, unless they're the ones that had the money to build the business. What is it about Democrats, or in her case, democratic socialists, that make them believe government should have the authority to confiscate by force most of a person's wealth so they can then dole it out to others who didn't earn it? Oh, and by all accounts, Social Security is living on borrowed time. Today, this wholly socialist construct is destined to run out of money by 2030, unless Congress, which has repeatedly done this, makes adjustments. My father was born in 1921. He told me he never expected to get Social Security when he retired. He retired in 1978. Yeah, he got Social Security. Got it till the day he died. But he never thought it would happen. It's a Ponzi scheme. And they just keep jacking it up, changing it, more and more money, throwing at it. They keep it going. Now, as a point of interest for the Ocasio-Cortezes of this world, the top 40% of earners in this country already pay all federal income taxes. 40% of the earners in this country pay 100% of the taxes. The top 20% pay nearly 90% of them. And Cortez wants to raise those taxes even higher. If you're married with children and earn more than $60,000 a year, you are the rich people in America. Median wage in America is $44,564 a year. That's according to 2017. And that's 0.9% higher than it was in 2016. There's a reason why socialism fails as an economic model. It robs citizens of incentives to be productive and generate wealth, because doing so just results in wealth confiscation. You'd think Cortez would understand this, given that she has a degree in economics. I want to give you a little quick view of biblical principles of finance. CNBC.com is the source of an article that says the average millennial, aged 18 to 34, had about $32,000 in personal debt, excluding some mortgages, last year, according to Northwestern Mutual's 2018 Planning and Progress study. The debt can be both crushing and endless. At least it seems that way. And statistically, 1 in 5 of us expect to die with debt still owed. But listening to Dave Ramsey, his callers are carrying anywhere from 2 to 4 times that amount of debt. And they routinely pay it all off in 2 to 5 years once they decide to do it. We're talking 50, 80, 100 and more thousands of dollars of debt in 2, 4, 5 years maximum. Now the Bible says the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is a servant to the lender. Proverbs 22:7. But everybody's got to borrow if they want a house or a car or college education, right? No, it's not true. What is true is that most of us must borrow to buy a home. But borrow how much? All of it? 90% of it? 80% of it? Borrow only what you can afford, which is about 40% of your gross salary per month. If you buy a house and you have to pay mortgage interest taxes that amount to more than 40% of your gross monthly salary, you got too big a house. Meaning if you earn $50,000 a year, you're talking about $3,400 a month of gross salary. You can afford a house payment of somewhere around $1,100, $1,200 a month. That includes the taxes and the insurance. You'll need at least 10% down. It should be more than that. And we're talking about a $200,000 home. Now, who needs a $200,000 home? Who wants a $200,000 house? And want and need are two different things. The idea here is you always owe less than the value of your home. If you do not, when the financial crunch comes, you can't get rid of it. I know some people do get upside down, and it's no fault of their own. But generally, if you do it right, that won't happen. And when you hear people complain it's happening, it's usually because they want to sell when the market's down. They want to move. They want something more, and they can't get out of it. Or they want to sell and buy something bigger, and the market won't let them. Or they've gotten themselves in large, unsecured debt, and they have to sell. The Bible tells us that you never spend what you do not have. And you never borrow more than you can repay in a very short period of time. And you never borrow for luxury items, not even cars. Now, not all cars are luxury items, but some are. And if you can't afford that car, you buy what you need. I drive a Lexus. What do you drive? I paid $15,000 for a 6-7-year-old Lexus 15 years ago. I still got it. You might have to buy a 10-year-old car, $8,000-$10,000. They're not bad cars. They're making cars really good today. You maintain them, that car will last you a long time. Cars are utilitarian items. They get you where you need to be. And if it does that faithfully, it's a good car. It's pride, it's greed, it's avarice that got you upside down in your car loan. I served 40 years as a pastor. I served 3 churches in 2 states. And I never made a lot of money. When I was raising my children, they were in Christian school. And that church paid me $6,000 a year plus parsonage in 1974. When I left, it was 80 something, what was it, 90. I forget when it was, do the math quickly. It was the late 80s. They were paying me $15,000 plus the parsonage. When I left, my wife took in children, and I drove a limousine and a charter bus until I could find a job. And I got a job with Barnes & Noble. With Barnes & Noble, in the 4 years that I worked for them, 3 years in New Jersey, I got a raise every 6 months. They found a way to give me money every 6 months. I was doing a good job. They were incentivizing me. But I never made over $30,000 gross. The last church I served paid me $200 a week for the first year or so. It then went up to $300, and then the next year to $400. Eventually it got to $600. And there was a parsonage. And that amounted to probably another $200 a week in terms of everything involved. When I retired in 2015, I was earning about $35,000 a year. In all of that time, we always had 2 cars. We always had enough to eat. We always had clothes to wear. We had a lot of what we wanted in terms of extras. When we got old enough and got Social Security, we used that to buy a home. When my daughter and her family sold their home, they moved into that property. We were still living in Wilmington. We were running back and forth to Somerville. I talked them into staying there because the things that they would have to go out and rent would probably 3 months later, you'd realize they had environmental problems. And my daughter had tremendous allergy issues. And I stayed. And to this date, I have never charged them rent. After, I guess, about 2 years, they did start to pay what they could. When the house next door to that became available, I purchased that one too. I was 69 years old. Absolutely amazed anybody would give me a second mortgage. I learned later it's because I had a credit score of over 800 and I didn't know anything except the other mortgage. Today I don't have a job. Not really. We live on Social Security and a part-time job driving a shuttle van that pays me, if I work 32 hours a week, it pays me $1,000 a month. The rent money I get from the other property goes in the bank, just in case. Surprises come when you get old. I'm in the process of working on changing jobs, something that has already cost me $5,000. That money pushed the savings account hard. Now with having to ready the house that my children were living in, they've moved out, getting it ready for tenants, it's going to cost me again. This ministry, the Bible Forum, has never generated a large amount of money, just enough to keep it going. In all my years of doing it, however, I never missed a payment, and I've never had to pay out of my household money. I couldn't if I wanted to. I don't share this as a sob story, but rather as a testimony of God's care and of the right attitude. In all my life, I have never felt God was shortchanging me or punishing me with small incomes because it was always enough. And no one ever knew that we were having to operate on a strict budget. When my kids got out of school, got friends outside the church and the community, those friends saw how we lived and thought that we were making big money, $80,000, $100,000 stuff. It wasn't like that. We operated on a budget. We still do. 5 years from now, I'll be 80 years old, and things will have to change. But God will not. Those people who want to change this country and make it into a socialist economy have no idea what destruction that would create. In this country, you don't have to have everything. You think you don't have enough, but only if you want more than you need. Spend more than you should on things you don't need, or you don't have the gumption, the drive, or whatever it takes to get out there and get work. If you're willing to work in America, there are jobs available. In our area, they're screaming for people. If you're willing to budget and live carefully, there's a good life waiting for you. If you want to sit around and wait for somebody to do it for you, or you want the government to take care of you, or you want to walk out of your parents' house and then walk into a situation that's just like what they got that took them 30 years to accomplish, you're an idiot. And you'll always be a complainer or a taker. You see, the good life has always been a matter of attitude, fortitude, and oh yeah, gratitude. Go to work.